the citrus industry is really in jeopardy. So a new disease is coming to Florida. Everybody on that commercial side has good intentions, but there's absolutely no knowledge of soil microbiology. It was the absolute discovery of regenerative science. I call it now the best kept secret. We're harvesting sunlight. That's what we're doing. It's the energy, it's turned into plant energy and then the fruit energy. I'm studying nutrient density and health and all these diseases that can now be treated with good nutrition. This is food as medicine.
Yeah.
When you ate that grapefruit, it did some things for you that were better than a one-a-day vitamin that you took this morning. There's this beautiful science that we're now uncovering that's regenerative, and you got ecosystem. A little more in that background, I was 38 years in the ag chem industry. 25 of that was doing field research, either out with farmers in their fields or on research farms.
Was that in citrus or was that in row crop?
It was in, gosh, all crops.
Okay.
I've worked in Florida, the Northeast, Pacific Northwest. I spent a year and a half in France, going all over Europe. So all those were kind of research-oriented roles. So it's interesting. So when I decided to farm in my retirement and plant citrus, citrus is new in Georgia. We have about 150 growers, but it's only been in the last 6 or 7 years. And it's a combination of, we've got some brand new irrigation techniques. Every tree, this is a great example. Here's a grapefruit tree.
Oh, those are beautiful.
And every tree has a microjet sprinkler under it.
Oh, okay.
And so when it freezes, I do a little extra. I put this tight pipe insulator. Unfortunately, that tree's got
some ants on it.
fire ants, yeah, which they can girdle and kill a tree. So the microjet keeps the graft. Every commercial citrus tree is grafted.
Why?
So we've got, you can see the graft is right down here.
Yeah, just don't get bit.
Yeah, the rootstock is a different variety than the scion. So the rootstock provides, it determines the size of the tree. It provides nematode resistance, the ability to pull up nutrients.
So you can't just like plant a grapefruit seed and expect a tree to grow?
Probably not.
Really?
They say it won't really produce anything for 7 or 8 years, which hopefully commercially you want fruit in 3 years. But you're taking mature wood and you're grafting it onto this really vibrant rootstock. So every tree out here, I've got 1,350 trees. Everyone is grafted.
Wow.
And so I picked, you have to start a year and a half ahead. You pick the rootstock that you want for whatever reason. These are on a rootstock called Flying Dragon, which is a dwarf. So this rootstock's going to keep the tree small, even though this is a pink frost grapefruit that was bred by University of Georgia, but it'll always stay small. If you put it on a different kind of rootstock, it would grow huge, 20 feet tall, but this one will stay 7 or 8 feet tall. I planted them close together. This is 8 feet, which is called high density.
So you've got the irrigation on there, but that's not necessarily for keeping them from getting thirsty. It's because of frost.
It is because we have to have it because of the frost. Now, it's great to have it because I utilize it to run most of my fertility through. So I can I can run all my nutrients through the irrigation system. We'll get into it, but I've realized it now that some of my cover crops, this is part of the regenerative, are probably stealing a lot of my my fertility, my nutrition. So I've come to actually do foliar applications. But so it's a combination of a rootstock that gives it freeze protection. This rootstock should take it down into the teens protection, and then the irrigation. So that's what's allowed Georgia growers, which were a little far north, to plant new varieties and to get into citrus.
So grafting them, is that just for, I mean, you're pretty north in the planting zone then for citrus. Is that just because of where you are in your zone? So if we go like way south onto the equator, can you still plant a seed or still it's
Everybody's going to graft. It's because you want productivity. So you're picking a high-powered variety that chances are it's been bred just for that. Chances are it's got a weak root system and it's not going to get big enough.
So it's bred for high production, but its root system sucks.
You have to join it then to a really high-powered root system. So all the trees are grafted. And people talk online all the time about, what about, can I plant this seed? And yeah, you can. And there's some lists out there of fruit, citrus that will grow from seed and be true. But think about this, when you're planting a seed, where did the pollen come from? So it's not like you've got a tree that's going to look like this. Every seed is going to look different because that pollen came from a honey bell that's over there. So you've got the seed that you pick, the father was a lemon, and the mother was this grapefruit. Unless it's completely self-pollinating that you got grapefruit to grapefruit. So you're gonna get stray pollen from all over. So that seed, you could plant 100 different seeds and you'll get 50 different looking trees.
Wow.
So to be true to type, I want exactly this.
Yeah.
To commercially harvest, who knows what you're gonna get if the pollen came from a completely different species. So
that's interesting.
That's the reason.
So that maybe speaks a little bit to some of your goal here. You've said it a couple times is for on a commercial standpoint. So you're trying to grow a lot at a commercial level with regenerative practices.
Right. And
Why?
my goal exclusively is nutrient-dense fruit.
Why? Well, okay, that we probably is assumption.
Just for human health. I really believe. So when I left the ag chem industry and started exploring doing commercial citrus planting, I'm embarrassed to say, my initial reason was, hey, I'm a plant pathologist. I can grow it organically and get a little higher market value.
Okay.
So organic fruit might be 20, 30% higher value. Might be a lot more. Well, once I did the research, I really discovered regenerative and found out that it is so far beyond organic. So I'm trying to be certified organic. As of this July, I'll have 3 years with no synthetic inputs. So I hope to launch with certified organic, and then there's certified regenerative. So beyond organic, I'm doing cover crops. I'm inoculating with microbes. I spend about half my time feeding the microbes. I do DNA analysis on the soil to determine exactly which microbes I've got, and can I do things to get more fungi? Can I bring in mycorrhizal fungi? I'm on my 4th different inoculum source for mycorrhizal fungi, and I talk to people that know about that, trying to get an alliance between the soil fungi in my tree. Eventually, that means the bacteria could break down all the nutrients. The fungi would bring it to the tree, and that'd be a symbiotic relationship, and really, ultimately, could potentially completely feed the trees. And the resulting from that is you're getting every micronutrient that this tree needs, and so this fruit is going to have incredible nutrient density. It'll have value to people that are health conscious or alternative medical treatments. There's all kinds of reasons.
But growing on a commercial level, and you've already, in theory, so in the future, your goal here is if you can grow at a commercial level doing regenerative practices, everyone can.
It is my goal. And here's even a broader goal than that. The citrus industry is really in jeopardy. So a new disease has come into Florida, which was primarily Florida's the juice industry, California's fresh fruit industry. But this disease called HLB, used to be called greening, probably came from China. It's called Hulongbing, and we just call it HLB. Florida has lost 80% of their production. They're closing down. Over 3/4 of all of the processing plants have closed. Growers have gone bankrupt. So if I can show that I can dramatically improve tree health, we don't have that disease yet in Georgia. The insect that carries it, the vector, we don't know why. It doesn't come this far north. So we don't have HLB. So if I can do research to show that regeneratively a tree can be grown on a commercial scale and improve the tree health, that information could be transferred to Florida and help them to overcome HOP. There's already been $1 billion of research done, and there's not a solution yet.
Wow.
So it is all about tree health, bringing the roots back, but that disease in 6 or 7 years actually kills their trees. And in the meantime, their fruit is misshapen and distorted. People are working on soil health to address it, and there's an awareness of that. I'm probably going further to the extreme on soil health by doing 100% regenerative organic.
Wow.
I'm actually doing nutrient density studies. I had very little fruit this year. My trees will be 3 years old in a couple of months. So I had some grapefruit. We just saw these. And so I took these grapefruit, and then I found a conventional grower.
Okay.
He's probably 40 miles from here. But completely conventional practices, insecticides, herbicides, bare ground.
Oh, that's a good point. Bare ground.
It's bare ground is the biggest difference. So I've got microbes. I plant cover crops. There's 10 species here. I plant them spring and then a different 10 species in the fall. So we'll go over there where they're thickest, and I'll show them all, identify them for you. But so I got grapefruit from 6 of my trees, and then I went to his grove and got 6. And then I juiced them, froze the juice, and then we're going to send them to University of Florida is helping me with some funding to send them to a lab for analysis. So we're going to get all the vitamin profile, his versus conventional versus regenerative, flavonoids, phytoalexins, carotenoids.
What do those do?
So it's
without getting like deep into it. But
everything that you see as flavor, vitamins, all of the value of the fruit. Citrus have 90 flavonoids. That's what gives them flavor. That's what.
Compare that to something else. Like what does I don't know, an apple have in flavonoids?
I really don't know anything else. Probably the food we're eating right now has so little nutritional value.
Yeah, it's so bland. There's like nothing to
and
it.
It's
basically
bland.
Water.
So after I froze some of the juice from these, I took grapefruit, what was left over, and I had some visitors, and we did a blind taste test. And so when they described the conventional fruit, it was like tasty, mild, juicy, sweet. And then they tasted mine, and one of the first reactions was, wow. Intense.
Ooh.
I've recorded all these words. Intense, robust. I can feel it all over my tongue. The flavor stays in my mouth. It lingers. There's all these descriptions, and then you think, okay, wait a minute. If all of those are in this fruit, it's a real. This is a pink grapefruit. I've got 4 varieties of grapefruit. They're all pink grapefruit.
You're making my mouth water. Can I try it?
Absolutely. It's a mess, but.
That's okay.
And theoretically, I mean, they're called seedless.
Oh, wow.
And it's got, see, there you
That
go.
is good.
Wow. Yeah. So that's the word I'm looking for, is wow.
Like it's a little sour, but.
But it's intense. And the intensity, that's nutrition. That's what you're getting.
Right, absolutely.
You're
I mean, there's
getting,
a reason why why processed food tastes so good, because they want you to taste it. And maybe I should say there's a reason why processed food has so many flavors added to it.
But you know what?
Because that's what our body wants.
There's not many natural. They've added spices and sugar to create flavors. These are natural flavors. I mean, this is amazing. There's only a couple of regenerative people around. One of the guys in Florida had people coming to buy his grapefruit, and they loved them, ate them every. When they ran out, they ate one every morning for breakfast, and they said, they're really good, and I'm not even hungry at lunchtime. And this guy came, when he ran out, he lived too far away, and he went to the store and bought the same variety of grapefruit. At the store, He ate one, and he wasn't satisfied. And he ate a second one, and he said when he was eating this grapefruit, by 10:30 in the morning, he was starving. He was hungry.
Isn't that interesting?
Instead of a regenerative that had all this nutrient value and satisfied.
So from a science perspective and a nutrients perspective, why is that?
It's the simple reason is we are force growing most of our agriculture. We're giving it synthetic. I could go buy synthetic fertilizer, which is essentially salts put together, and I can grow this tree, and I'll show you down here. I've done it in a trial, twice as fast. I call it hollow cells. I mean, I can make the tree grow fast, tall, big trunk, all the way down to the cellular level. So I've got a cell that's been forced to grow big. What are the contents of that cell? What are all of the physiological things, all the chemistry isn't there. I have done, it's almost hydroponic. I've artificially pushed a tree so hard to grow. And
that's a really good point. It's like they're more concerned about quality or quantity than quality.
It's purely yield. And that's what, it's so sad. I mean, that's what we're taught. I've got an agronomy degree and then a plant pathology degree, and that's what we're taught. You just need to, the farmer's being paid on yield. Unfortunately, that's also our system. He's only paid on yield. I'm gonna have to market to a completely different audience.
I mean, we did that with meat.
Sure.
And we had a higher price in the grocery store, but our quality was different. And I've spoken with many farmers how it's not just the quality, but the quantity needed to feel full and satiated, like we were just talking about with the grapefruit.
That's right.
Is different. That you can get from your
Can eat half as much and feel full and fine.
Yeah, that like one farmer said, I'll go to a steakhouse and have a 16-ounce ribeye and be like, man, I could have all those potatoes with it. But then I have my own beef from my own farm where it's raised regeneratively, and I have, a 2-ounce filet, and I'm like, man, I'm full.
It's exactly. So
it's so crazy.
Think of the nutrients that he's getting. So it's not like we're eating more, gaining weight, obesity. I mean, everything.
Because it's not about calories.
Everything is related. It's the epidemic of diabetes and ADHD. When COVID hit, people had, their health level was so low. Those are the people that were seriously impacted.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, this is what I was trying to find out. So if you look at these trees on the right, these are conventional. And then.
So this row.
That's right.
You used synthetic fertilizers
Synthetic
for them.
fertilizer.
You don't have, my foot just sank into the ground.
I sprayed the ground with Roundup.
There's there's no cover crops.
No, there's no cover crops. And what is coming up here, I rated it last year, are going to be weeds, as opposed to.
And by a weed, you mean like invasive, toxic?
Not so much, just the natural weeds that are here. Red sorrel, split leaf evening primrose. It's what we consider winter weeds in Georgia. The rest of my field, my whole farm, by March, is going to be 2 feet deep in clover, hairy vetch, ryegrass, black oats. In the summertime, I'll have sorghum, sun hemp, some more legumes. So, but everything will be a solid cover of clover, which is building soil, supporting the microbes.
And this strip does not have any of that.
It doesn't have any of that.
And the trees are huge. I mean, they look.
That's what's sad, and that's what's frustrating. Growing regeneratively, this is what I have to do. So this is regenerative. So it's just pure organic fertility. It's just a slower growth, but you can feel a difference when you walk through.
Yes, my foot feels supported. I don't feel like I sunk into the mud.
Well, it's actually, what I'm looking for is a spongy
That's
feeling.
exactly what I was about to say.
So the sponginess, that's my microbes. They're down there going wild. And then so every year for 3 years now, I've done DNA analysis of that conventional. This one is called indigenous. I didn't add any microbes. And then my next treatment, so I've got This is a replicated trial. So this is what I do. This is what I did in my career was whenever we had a question, you put out a replicated trial. So these 3 treatments, and this one is pure regenerative, so it's organic everything, but I've added microbes.
Okay.
I add bacterial inoculants that are commercial. I've added mycorrhizal fungi. Like I said, I'm on my 3rd different variety. My DNA shows that I'm not getting the response from the mycorrhizal fungi. So I'm shifting now to a new really live culture.
Is it right to say that the leaves are different, just observationally, or is that because of the frost that we've had?
It's the frost.
Okay.
Everything looked pretty nice and vigorous, and then the frost makes the tree draw up. They're all kind of a little discolored, kind of a brownish color. Summertime, citrus is a prolific plant. The leaves never drop. A grower, all citrus growers, we're looking for a leaf flush. So the number that university has is that it takes 25 leaves to grow each fruit.
Okay.
So what if a citrus tree genetically can flush 5 times during the year? So come March, I'll have a leaf flush. 6 weeks later, there'll be another one.
What do you mean by a flush?
It'll be a whole new, every little joint.
Oh, it'll add a new one.
Will add a new leaf. So this little tree, if the health is just right, is perfect. I've had trees that have doubled their number of leaves in a flush, and I've got a chance to do that 5 times in a year.
Wow.
But you've got to get everything right. Whereas on the conventional, I bypass the natural system. So I'm forcing growth by pouring nitrogen, NP and K. They only got 3 fertilizer shots during the year. These got 20, real small amounts. A little bit of zinc, copper, iron, fish hydrolysate, kelp for hormones. I put an algae in there, end-soil algae that's carrying a lot of endophytes that are more bacteria to stimulate things.
Now, you mentioned over there that you think that maybe your cover crops are kind of eating up some of your nutrients, but is there any reason to say that your cover crops are adding nutrients as well?
Absolutely. So we know now about every plant. So right over here are some of my covers. So this is daikon radish.
Yeah.
So every plant exudes about 40% of all the carbohydrates it generates back out into the soil, and we know that that's to feed the microbes. That's the natural relationship between every plant and the soil. You know, the trees in the forest, they don't need any nutrition. It's all microbial. So this is my ryegrass. I mean, incredible root system.
Yeah, it looks great.
That was probably 1 seed. It's tillered. I even found in the summertime I had sorghum, and a single seed would tiller, and I'd have a root system bigger than a basketball.
Wow.
So this is kale, I'm assuming, and it's not going to have the root.
It's not going to pull up.
But it's not going to have but
oh, wow.
that's a root system. 1 plant root system. So it's putting all of its exudates, or at least we know at least 40%. So this is one of my favorites. This is daikon radish.
That's a pretty cool little plant.
In Japan, this is one of their major
Looks
vegetables.
tasty.
It tastes just like a radish. My son has pulled a bunch of them, and he's been sautéing them and eating
I mean,
them.
they're growing up like little pineapple trees. Look at that one over there.
Yeah. It's really funny. Yeah, they come up out of the ground.
That's crazy.
So the root grows half under the ground. They call them a tillage radish. So one of my strategies is to cut it off and let the 6-8 inches in the soil rot in it. If people have hard pans, from tractor traffic, they plant these tillage radishes, and it goes down and it grows through the hard pan and busts it open.
Yeah.
But the size of this is,
Whoa.
I mean, that's amazing.
That's crazy.
It was just planted in October, and that's, 4 months growth. It'll keep getting bigger.
That's crazy. Stick it back down in there.
It made the freeze complicated. So we had 6 nights of freeze last week. I have to run the irrigation to get the water on the base of the plant. So if the freeze becomes extreme and knocks out the tree, at least I'm saving the base. And the mist from this irrigation, this goes out 6 feet in all directions.
Right.
And my sprinklers put out 12 gallons an hour per tree. And that's what's needed to save the tree. So that nice warm mist, the well water is 65 degrees. So it's 30 out here.
Right.
And I got this 65-degree mist that's coming up over the tree. And basically, it's protecting it.
Yeah.
So these did real well.
That's a good point that you bring up the water, though, especially on the regenerative side. You said you went through 1 million gallons of water in 6 days?
In six nights I went through.
Now, we're down south, and that cold was not normal.
That's right.
But how do you save on your water consumption? I know you're on a well out here, so it's a little different. But
I mean, if you think about it from the other point of view, especially because my cover crops, my ground is very porous, that water is just recycling. It's going, I'm taking advantage of a wonderful natural resource. We have an incredible aquifer, and it's at my expense. I'm bringing up that water. Any given night, I'm pumping 200,000 gallons, 250,000, quarter of a million, and I'm using the warmth of the ground to keep my trees alive. And then by the next day, I have soil moisture meters all over the farm. By the next day, it's already going back down. I can actually watch it go down 4 inches, 8, 16. And it goes, they're down to 24 inches, and I see it restores that groundwater, and that's gonna work its way back down to the aquifer. I'm farming microbes, so when I water, I'm actually concerned that the soil's getting too dry. I think the trees are fine. I'm trying to keep every one of my microbes
that's a good point.
alive. You know, they say in a spoonful of active organic soil, there's more microbes than people on the planet.
Isn't that crazy?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And so I do the DNA analysis out here, which is, gosh, it's fascinating. So for 3 years now, I did it before I planted. This was a cotton field, and this is South Georgia, so we rotate cotton and peanuts. 2 to 3 years of cotton, a year of peanuts, back to cotton. So this had been 2 years of cotton. I bought the field. Cotton was all run east-west. I changed the direction. I deep shanked the soil, and that's the last time any tillage has ever touched this soil. I want to make sure there wasn't a hard pan. So I did DNA testing, and I was absolutely floored to find out, even from a cotton field, there were 650 different species of microbes, the identifiable ones, already here.
Wow.
So bad and good, because it's been a cotton field, heavily sprayed, Roundup, nematicides. Cottons will get 6 or 8 insecticides a year, another 8 or 10 plant growth regulators. You get all these things, basically an unhealthy soil. But then in the first 7 months, in my regenerative treatment, it actually went from 650 to 1,100 species. So
in just
7 months.
7
yeah.
months.
So taking care of the soil, covering it.
Wow.
Some of those were ones I inoculated with, but it's really the nutrition I add for the microbes. I feed them constantly. Fish hydrolysate, which is a lot of protein. That's all the nitrogen would come from. Kelp, some good hormones. And then I try the carbons. So people think of molasses, which is, but then there's a lot of long chain carbons, humic acid, fulvic acid. So those things I'm constantly putting out. Right now I'm worried that I've irrigated so much, I'm ready for it to dry out, and the first thing I'm gonna do is feed my microbes.
Okay.
I'm not worried about the trees. I don't want them to start growing, but I wanna feed my microbes.
So this all feels very technical. And from a regenerative standpoint, it almost feels impossible for a backyard grower to do. How do you feel about that? Do you want backyard growers, or do you think that it just should be commercial given all of the things that you have to do to make citrus grow?
Actually, every backyard tree, every small farm, they're growing trees. It doesn't matter what they are, apple trees, peach trees, citrus trees. Why wouldn't you want a peach that was loaded with nutrients compared to one where all you can do is throw out some NPK, 10, 10, 10, and walk away? Then you're gonna have that hollow, shallow growth. It's gonna taste like a dead peach that you get in the grocery store, or this tomato that's been gassed, that was picked green. Do you think there's any nutrient value in that tomato? It's even been bred for quick growth.
How does the backyard grower do that then?
So, it's even easier for them. I'm trying to do it on such a large scale.
And you have regulations, so we
Yeah.
could throw out some chickens next to our trees because
Absolutely.
I'm not going to have some inspector tell me that I can't eat the fruit off
No.
of my tree in my yard.
Absolutely. And if I had people just coming to the farm to buy fruit, I could do animals, which is, I guess, a market gardener is able to do, and I know the regulations. But I'm going to ship fruit, hopefully to an audience that's going to want and appreciate nutrient-dense food for all the health reasons. Same reason you'd buy, pasture-raised chickens and beef that was raised correctly. So in their backyard, let plants grow around it, especially some legumes, which I've got clover, I've got hairy vetch.
It's okay to have growth around your tree.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt the
No,
tree. Nothing's going to outcompete.
No, well, apparently they are competing, but the citrus roots, when I lost some to a freeze last year, I dug up trees, and there was these incredible bundles of roots. Just recently I dug way out here, and roots were going out 8 feet from this little tree. It's only 3 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 4 feet tall, and I've got roots going out. Think of that, 8 feet in all directions. And when they froze back last winter, a lot of the trees, this one did, and it killed the main stem.
Oh.
It had to be pruned off. I mean, some of them I had to cut. It froze down to here, and this is all last year's growth. But
so it's technical for you and here because you want to do it on such a large scale. But as a backyard grower, I don't have to import kelp or seaweed or fish poop or anything like that necessarily.
No, but you know what? It's commercially available. So there's some, you can go to Lowe's and they've got all kinds of organic stuff nowadays. So I would just stay with everything organic, and what you get at Lowe's, it says right on the back, it's got 8 species of bacteria, inoculant in there, and 3 or 4 species of mycorrhizal fungi. Yeah, the tree needs some nutrition, so buy that stuff. So it's whatever you would do for fertilizing an organic garden.
Yeah.
That's what you would do on your trees in your backyard.
Interesting.
Now, like I have found, they will grow slower. You're not artificially pushing them.
But growing slower than a monster tree
Yes.
that is being pushed hard. So I don't know if I would even say growing slower. I think that's growing at normal speed.
It's
and
growing
it's the other trees
That's
that are
right.
growing at hyper speed
It's growing at
for
normal
production only, but not for nutrition value.
It's growing at normal speed. It's healthy. Every cell within this tree, it's hard to measure, but I hope is healthier. The cytoplasm in the cell, it's loaded with all kinds of stuff that I think those conventional trees are just kind of hollow. So I got 2 varieties that I'm sending out for nutritional analysis. And I'll show you a picture. When I went to a commercial farm and I had enough page mandarins to sample, 16 different trees, and I went to a farm and sampled all of their trees. The fruit was a different color. Theirs was yellow. Mine was so bright orange, it almost glowed. It smelled different. I didn't think of doing the taste test with the mandarin. I should have. But I've got the juice frozen. It's going to go to the lab along with the grapefruit. And when I get the results back, I'll publish some results, try to write some articles about it. A lot of people are interested. I've just posted pictures, and it's absolutely startling. You can't believe that the growing practices cause this fruit to look completely different, like when I did the taste test. tastes completely different. Robust.
We've talked a lot about, you know, the research you're doing on here, the physically what you're doing, and some of the why that you want to provide good food to people. But you came from agronomy side of it.
Yeah, just
Why?
Commercial, conventional, industrial agriculture.
Industrial
is what it
agriculture.
was. Yeah.
So what made you change? Why did you say, I don't like the way this is going, I'm going to do something different?
It was the absolute discovery of regenerative science. I call it now the best kept secret. It's sad that in 40 years, I started out trying to go into ecological agriculture, and I transferred to the University of Georgia because they had a school of ecology and a school of agriculture. I had to major in one. So I majored in agronomy. They actually ridiculed anything to do with the ecology and the environment. And my first semester, they said, "Oh, we've been doing that for 100 years. You don't need to study ecology." So, I was kind of drawn in to the commercial agriculture side of it. And I got involved in doing research and worked on a research farm, and I loved that component. And the objective and all my peers was always to feed the world, help farmers. I mean, everybody on that commercial side has good intentions, but there's absolutely no knowledge of soil microbiology. I took soil microbiology when I was in school 40 years ago, and there was no discussion of the beneficial aspects of it. We only talked about the pathogens, the nematodes. What a revelation to realize I spent 40 years intently working on, I hate to admit, developing pesticides. I was a product manager at one point, launched new fungicides, and I use it now because I realize it's killing the mycorrhizal fungi over there that I'm trying to grow on the rest of the farm. But on my conventional treatment, I put out that fungicide that I launched 8 or 9 years ago, and the nematicide that I launched.
How does that make you feel? That you created something that you're like, oh shit, it's killing things that I'm trying to grow now.
I've anticipated this question for a long time. And intentions, mine and corporate ag chem companies, intentions are sincere.
Yeah.
I mean, and the intent.
I believe that. I 100% believe that.
There is no deception, and the farmers, they don't know. What frustrates me is there's so little communication about the incredible research that's being done in regenerative.
Why? It's
not well funded because it's not as commercially viable. The market for it is very small. It might be 5% of American ag would be willing to adopt it. Whereas if you're adopting a herbicide that can go on all 90 million acres of corn, your market potential is $200 million.
Are you saying it's money related?
Well, it has to be, because if you can't afford to do the research, it costs, even before I retired, it cost $280 million to get a registration through EPA for a pesticide. It takes 10 years. Guess what? The patent only lasts for 17. So you've invested $280 million.
At least.
It's just business. You've invested $280 million. You got 7 years to recoup your that and start making a profit. So unfortunately, what's the cost for that pesticide? It's $30 an acre. And then you're gonna have to get to at least 1 million acres to make back just 1 million acres at $30 an acre. It would still take you 10 years to recoup your investment. It's I'm not gonna say it's a broken system, it's just, it's a very costly system. I mean, EPA is doing a great job of protecting the environment. The knowledge is getting out there. Every magazine now that you pick up in ag, and I still subscribe to all these magazines, there's always an article now about soil health. This is something brand new. Now, in the last 10 years, the discoveries have been incredible. So we didn't know those things when I started 40 years ago. That knowledge really wasn't out there. I mean, I took soil microbiology.
Is it right or wrong to say that maybe the knowledge was out there, it was just kept within small communities like indigenous cultures who were cultivating plants in a certain way? Because
Well,
we've seen some things
but it
like
wasn't knowledge, it was just tradition. The
Okay.
tradition was out there in indigenous cultures. They didn't know why. Indians didn't know why they boiled weeds and poured that on their seed before they planted the corn.
They just knew that they were doing that and it was better.
They'd been trying different things for 1,000 years. That one worked really well. It was incredible. Now we know why. Now we can do DNA analysis.
Yeah.
Now we can, I can do nutrient, I do sap analysis on my trees to determine, and I want to show you that, to know what nutrients they need. Now, that resource wasn't out there. I mean, that's only been in the last 7, 8, 10 years that's even labs are learning how to do that. So we now have an incredible technical science level that's allowing us to discover nature, what, you know, this incredible creation that God made that's a natural ecosystem. I'm just trying, that's what regenerate means. I'm trying to restore this ecosystem that could be here. Now, because it's citrus and this is a little bit out of its native, I'm having to bring in some things to see if I can create a native environment.
But this is
for
the
it.
modern world, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's something to be said that everything can't be exactly the way it was 1,000 years ago, because we aren't 1,000 years ago. We are 1,000 years in the future now.
Right.
And things have changed.
And we have a lot of people. There's 7 billion people that we're trying to feed. And so I just want to know that I'm contributing to feeding them better. I mean, holy smoke. I absolutely believe. Now I'm studying nutrient density and health and all these diseases that can now be treated with good nutrition. It doesn't have to be pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
This is food as medicine.
Yeah.
When you ate that grapefruit, it did some things for you that were better than a one-a-day vitamin that you took this morning. I guarantee it.
I don't take vitamins because I know that I'd rather get it from my food, but it definitely was different than I get from the store.
But it needs to be from good food.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's one of the huge challenges. Let me show you some things, analytical wise, what I'm doing.
Okay.
This is it's not even a barn, it's a shed.
It's your workshop. Oh my gosh.
When I was
look at that
describing,
picture.
these are page mandarins, and these are the fruit that I picked from my grove. And I went to a commercial grove that's very successful. They're growing page mandarins. They grew the trees that I planted. They're fertilizing with 10-10-10, Roundup, 3 or 4 times a year. Insecticides constantly, fungicides. I don't have to do any of that. I mean, I'm fertilizing with all organic stuff. This is the DNA results. So this is after 3 years. This is what it looks like. The company has biomakers, and you take a soil sample, a lot of samples. I take at least 15, mix them really thoroughly, then they run it through an incredible process and quantify and identify every species that they can. So they identify bacteria, mycorrhizae, endomycorrhizae, ectomycorrhizae, all the fungi, some other things. So I clicked on just fungi. I'm looking to see how many species, and diversity is great. That's what gives health to the tree, prevents diseases. And so now after 3 years with Roundup over the top, this is how many species of
Ladybug.
See, here's a good guy right there. Probably 200 species of fungi. And the size of the circle is the quantity. It's how many times it was detected.
Okay.
So I've got at least 200 species. Now this, remember there's 1,100 when you add the bacteria and everything together. There may be 300. Some of them so small you can't. And then on my conventional, so this is getting sprayed with Roundup. Nothing encouraging. The bacteria feed the fungi. The fungi grow, I get diversity, I get health. In 3 years, this is what happened. One fungi has taken over the soil. 89% of all the fungi in those little strips are this worthless puffball. I mean, it's contributing nothing. It's obviously driving out all the other fungi.
Yeah.
Contributing. Now, It's commercial agriculture. I'm pouring the fertilizer to it like a farmer would. We saw the trees, they grow fast. But how healthy could they be when there's none of these relationships that are being developed in that soil? So all it's there is this puffball, plus a few other things. So
that's so crazy. Like, and what a nice visual representation to see.
It's to be able to do the analysis. I get numbers, I get all kinds of stuff, but holy smoke, to see it is earth-shattering.
Right.
So this is my USDA compost study.
Okay.
Every plot is 4 trees, and then I measure those 4 trees. I measure leaf flush, and it's only been out since middle of last year, so that I get differences, but I'm surprised they're not exactly what I was expecting.
In what capacity?
Well, initially, this product called humus, that's just, I have 3 compost, and then this humus, which is just a pure, rich carbon source for the microbes. Initially, boom, it stimulated more leaf flush. But when I use the microbiome meter, as it go into fall, that's declined and gone back down. So it's not, I think this flush in the spring and then the trunk growth. The tree continues to grow all winter long.
Wow.
It's what I really love about citrus. So we got to think about it. We're harvesting sunlight. That's what we're doing. It's the energy, it's turned into plant energy and then to fruit energy. And the citrus tree is green and growing. The trunk will grow 10 or 15% over the winter time. We think it's dormant, but it's
not.
It's growing. And
it's just not growing in the leaf structure. It's growing in the roots and in the
But these
trunk.
5 flushes of leaf, come March 15th, these trees will start budding out. Winter will be over.
Wow.
End of March, and there'll be an explosion, everything out here. And so that's March 15th. The commercial growers, which there's a cotton field right on the other side of those trees, they're not even going to plant until May or peanuts. So I've got 3 months in the spring, another 2 months in the fall that my trees are doing incredible things.
Yeah.
When row crops, they're not even in the field. They're only out in the field 3 or 4 months, 5 months maybe. I'm farming 12 months a year and harvesting sunlight.
Yeah.
So
you said you have compost for these.
Yeah.
Where do you get that compost?
I had truckloads brought in of just tree trimming from the power company, and they brought in 4 loads and a big pile like this, and in a year and a half, it digested down to about 1/3 its original size. So that's my in-house compost. I turned it with a tractor a little bit.
Yeah.
4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Then there's a nice commercial source 20 miles away that's really interesting. It's mixed with biochar.
Ooh, okay.
So he's got 25% biochar. It's cow manure, pine bark, and biochar composted together.
Cool.
Very interesting, and it's economical. And then this Elaine Ingram source. And then the one that's pure humus is from about 50 miles away, a guy that's an organic provider, and it's mined somewhere here local in Georgia. It used to be a cypress swamp and deteriorated down until it compressed down until it was pure humus. And then my untreated, I'm not sure which, the colored flags. The untreated, I just used cypress bark. This white is the untreated.
Wow.
It was cypress bark.
Hey, question, are there ants in that?
Not right there.
But there are. Okay, I just was curious if maybe the ants were in one place or not another, but they definitely are.
It would be interesting. I've noticed that things grow different on the different composts. Which, if the compost would give me a little bit of clearance around the tree, you can see this was a different treatment. So
so it's obviously a little different growth there.
What
not
I
necessarily
do with
bare, but
what I do with my cover crops is I mow and I throw the residue from the cover crops to the tree row, and so you can feel it. It's getting spongy.
Yeah, I just watched you walk on that. And
to me, that's my greatest encouragement. That's microbes.
Yeah.
Doing their things.
Have you thought about, or maybe does the research work for vermicast or looking at your worm counts?
Oh, it should. I have this aversion to digging too much.
Yes.
In my
sense.
trees, because my roots are all the way out here. So this is a penetrometer.
Ooh,
You put 200 pounds of pressure on it, and you see how far it'll go in. Got to stop. So this is my alleyway. So that's 4.5 inches. Okay, come over in the row. This is where I've been doing the cover crops. I've been feeding the microbes. This is my zone. Same thing. 200 pounds of pressure.
You can't go far enough.
I can't. It goes to the handles, so it went all the way.
So wait, let's talk about that, because
Yeah.
you aren't digging this up. I think that a lot of people talk about tilling because they're saying,
No.
oh well, I'm burying what's going to decompose.
Never touched. Steel has never touched this ground.
You don't till it up.
For 3 years, no. And all I do on this seed is I just spread it. I buy a pre-mix that's got all this. I tell them what species I want, and it comes, and it's just.
That's crazy.
It's just so. This is so encouraging when when I walk and it goes whoop and I go up every time.
Yeah.
So here's all my species. So I got clover.
Yes.
Huge leaf.
Great looking clover.
That's a sign of good nutrients. This is Austrian winter pea is one of my mixes. I have two varieties of clover. I've got a kale and I can tell from the serrated leaf, that's the daikon radish.
Yes.
The solid leaf is either kale or turnip. There's some cereal rye that was planted, which tillers out, and there's black oats, which I can't tell them apart until the oats come on. Everywhere in my grove. So when because I've already got beautiful mulch over there, all the seeds germinate, and they do really well. Out here in the middles.
Do you seed out here?
Yeah, I seed solid. So.
Wow.
But now out here is a mix. This is hairy vetch.
Yep.
And this is the clover. And actually, by the end of March, the whole grove will be almost 2 feet deep.
But how crazy is it that there's so much growth next to the tree versus...
Right, because that sprinkler is right there.
Oh, that's a good point.
And all the nutrients.
The water, yep.
The nutrients come out for 6 feet.
Yeah.
So what I am doing, even though my tree is growing slower, all those nutrients, you can see it from the soil. They're feeding the microbes. Those microbes are aerating the soil.
Yeah.
And think of the root penetration. I said my roots were at 8 feet. Well, that's probably a big contributor. Got that porous soil.
Which, Paul, my husband and I talk about this a lot, that what's retirement if you love what you're doing, you know?
No, I am having so much fun.
Yeah.
And part of it is what you were getting at. This was my career. I discovered something new that I believe can help to change agriculture. My whole premise is the information is not out there.
Yeah.
But if I can do replicated trials, which are respected by the scientific community, university and things, I've done.
Are they listening to you?
They do. Some do and some don't. So there's a whole group that are waking up and becoming aware. There's a couple of citrus people in Florida that, part about a desperation to solve HLB, but they're realizing this is incredible.
Yeah.
And the one professor that's not too far away, he's actually sends a grad student up here, and she's working with me on the conventional versus regenerative, and that's her master's thesis. And he's gonna fund the analysis, the nutrient density of my fruit. So they are listening, yeah. And we all hope that there's gonna be something amazing find out. And what if I can show that my fruit has 3 times the nutrient level of conventional? That's a breakthrough.
Yeah.
That makes all this effort worthwhile. Yeah, because conventional farmers are still farming that way. They need the help, protection from the leaf miner that's coming in, from citrus canker, from HLB. Until these solutions are complete and documented and affordable and doable on a commercial scale, I'm not sure right now This would be a challenge for a grower with 100 acres or 1,000 acres. A few people are doing it. One grower in Florida who makes Matt's organic orange juice and grapefruit juice.
Yeah.
Incredible. And we talk quite a bit. But they find there's no certified organic packing shed that can market fresh fruit. They can only do juice because they can get a plant that's certified. The certification process is really complicated.
Yeah.
And so the plant where you do it has to be certified. I hope to build a little packing shed, but it's going to be costly to build it to all their specifications,
Right.
so that I can market my fruit. In year one, I'll take it to an organically certified vegetable grower, hopefully run my fruit through his line, which
Yeah.
is just a little bit of cleaning and maybe wax it to help it stay fresh for a long time. And then I'll ship directly.
In speaking with, like about, I guess in the career professional world, we say in your past life.
Right.
But in the industrial part, do you have contacts still over there? Or you talked about how when you went to college, they kind of ridiculed the ecology side of things.
Yeah.
Is there an open line of communication with your old people?
I haven't, sure, there's good communication, but I haven't been too active. What I'd really like to do is get to the point where I have data, where I can prove some of the things I'm doing. That's what's credible in the big industrial agriculture. Now, the sad thing is they just focus on one thing at a time. Do all this to just control this insect, or this disease, or this nutrient deficiency. I'm combining 10, 12, 15 different practices for total tree health. Mm-hmm. Any one is not completely significant by itself, but when you combine them all together and you get tree health. My goal is that leaf miner, once my tree health gets, and they know the number, when you get the bricks in the leaf to 12 or above, no insect's interested in it. They only are interested in weak, easy to digest food that they can get out of a leaf.
That makes it makes a lot of sense.
If my trees are so complex because they have perfect nutrition and balance and microbes, all the endophytes living inside the plant, it's like our bacteria in our gut.
Yeah.
There's more bacteria than we have cells in our body.
Yeah.
And it keeps us healthy, which that's why most of us are not healthy. And so if I can get that balance right and produce data, this is a little test right here. Every other tree got Chilean nitrate. I got the blue flags out. And so I got, a little test. I'm looking for growth, leaf flush differences to see if that's worth the investment.
So you're waiting to have undisputed hard data before you go to them and say, now, what about
it's what that industry respects.
What the industry wants.
They won't.
From an industry as a whole, but what about I'm sure you still have friends that you were colleagues with. Do they think that you just retired and went to the nutty house? Or are they just genuinely a little interested in what you're doing?
No, they still respect me because I worked with them for 10 or 15 or 30 years.
Because you are a respectable person.
So they respect me because they absolutely cannot figure out why I would be doing this. Because it's not that we're taught, but in conventional agriculture, this is the competition. I mean, we always had even little things. Oh, if it's organically grown, you could be getting pathogens from the organic, from the cow manure. And now realizing, goodness, that's not true. It's so sad. It's a lack of knowledge, a lack of awareness. One of my old professor friends, I contracted out a lot of research. Professor friend that I'd even been to China with, he came out and looked at what I'm doing nutritionally. He's a soil nutrition specialist. He just said, you just need NPK, 10-10-10. That'll solve all your problems. And he absolutely, he wouldn't even listen to this breakout of zinc, copper, iron. I'm changing my level of zinc and copper every week. Now I need a little boron to help my calcium and hold down the potassium. He wasn't interested in that because from a conventional approach, you just throw it all out there. And just because it's 4 times more than the plant needs of this, it's just recently that we're finding out when we get that excess, it's suppressing something else.
Well, and it's the idea that, like, if as a human, if we are at a salad bar and we are like, I'm feeling like I want something sweet and there's strawberries, I'll grab some strawberries. But there's also croutons and I'm like, nah, I'm good on salt. I don't want any croutons. So we won't take it. But and that's the approach that we're taking as scientists, that you just throw it all out there, and if it needs it, it'll take it. But we don't realize that by by overdoing it, we're actually hurting it.
We're actually hurting it, yeah.
Yeah.
Too much potassium is what my problem is here. It's suppressing the uptake of all the other cations, all the positively charged nutrients that are out there, and calcium is the one that my plants desperately need. Silicon is a brand new nutrient that people aren't even looking at. The professor, Mohammed Shahid, down at University of Florida, has just almost discovered that it'll prevent freeze damage. If the plant has enough silica in its leaf structure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like with clay-based soil, right?
It can be, yeah, it can come from that. But if it's just in silica, the sand or the clay, it's not in the form that's uptakeable.
I see, okay.
The bacteria have to break it down into a certain silicic acid, then it's taken up.
It's that whole chain of starting here, but it needs to be made
Guess
here.
what? The plant desperately needs it. He did 3 trials in Florida this past year, and these trees that had silica 3 times during the year had no impact from freezes. And trees right next to it would be all curled up and brownish and discolored. And that's the only difference. He was putting out silica. We haven't even paid attention to that as a nutrient. But it was giving stability to all those cells inside the leaf, making them almost elastic.
I mean, you think of silica and you think of silicone, right?
Right,
Like,
yeah, silicone, which is basically an elasticity.
Yeah.
So there's things that are being discovered, and that's completely new. I mean, he's trying to focus on this northern citrus, which freezing and frost is our biggest enemy. And so he's working to get that to survive.
You've talked about like how you're tweaking your minerals and what you need, and you're making some go up and some go down, and you're watching it so closely. This was conventionally farmed before you got it.
Yes.
If you were to have this all over again and start over, would you still plant trees right away? Because I wonder, what if taking it out of production, if you could like come in and just throw a bunch of cow manure on it and like all of these extra fertilizers to really build it up before you get the trees on. Would you do that, or do you think it's okay?
If I was 20 years old, absolutely. But I'm looking at, okay, 10 years, what can I do? I need to, my tree, this is going to be year 4, be my first harvest after I've invested a lot of money, which that's perennial crops. You invest all the money. And so the biggest growers that are getting into this citrus, they're doing something else. They're big vegetable growers. They're 2,000 acres of vegetable. So they have land, wells, teams of people, equipment, and all those resources. They're just buying trees and putting it in. Some big pecan growers. Not many row crop people, a few. All the expense. Buying the land, putting in the well, which is the most expensive thing out here. Getting a tractor. I bought a tractor this morning.
Oh!
I had a tractor that was too big. Getting the greenhouse, buying the trees, and so all that capital investment. I would do it differently next time. I think I would. I guess my discovery from that conventional regenerative is that things do compete with the trees. When the tree is little, the baby tree does need some space. So I would do whatever I needed to do organically, still organic, to keep it clear around that tree for a year or 2. I mean, some of my conventional counterparts, I know a lot of the conventional guys, goodness, in 2 years, 2.5 years, they got a tree trunk that big around. It's unbelievable. So I would do things to minimize competition so that my balanced nutrients could be taken up better. I'm thinking that's my, looking at everything, the DNA. Everything is positive except for the rate of growth. I would do things a little differently to expedite growth. Again, just to get to market in 3 years instead of 4 years. The regenerative approach is, okay, step back 3 times and say, the real problem is an unhealthy plant. So how can I do a nutritional program? How can I, cotton is the most amazing. They put so much nitrogen on it, 200 to 300 units of nitrogen, that it grows too fast. Then over on this side, they put a PGR, plant growth regulator, to hold it down so that it doesn't grow. It'll grow 15 feet tall. But they
And
only,
have no cotton on it.
a little bit, but you can't harvest it.
Yeah.
It's like a tree.
Yeah.
But they want it to be 4 feet tall, so it's harvested, nice short internodes. So they have to put PGR on it, which stops the photosynthesis for 4 days every time you put it out. They're putting it out 8 times during the season, maybe 10, because they put out so much nitrogen over here. So they got this plant that wants to grow, I gotta suppress it. Put on some more, gotta suppress it. And so
The human element is controlling way too much of it.
we think we're in control. There's this beautiful natural system. So they're talking, AEA is one kind of leading this on cotton. You leave off the nitrogen, go from 300 pounds to 50. You don't need these PGRs.
Who would have thunk?
And guess what? So you leave off 2 things and your yield goes up. It's unbelievable, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like, people are slowly having their eyes open. It's like, wait a minute, I'm my own worst enemy. I'm treating so much of this that I'm having to do this. I'm creating a problem.
I'm creating the problem.
I'm
It's
creating
me.
a problem.
I am the problem.
Yeah.
Let's go to Taylor Swift and say, it's me.
And
I
it's the
did it.
same with insects. So I can I can throw this nitrogen at it. The cells, everything in the leaf has this low nutritional density. The insects fly over, they can literally see it. They have all these spectrums of vision that we don't have. They literally can pick out the least healthy plants and they attack those, lay their eggs on those. That's where they want their larvae to grow up. And so,
And then by doing so, they're going to hurt the plants around
so
them.
the farmer's got
farmer's
to spray everything, because
Yeah.
he goes out and scouts and he finds out, holy smoke, I got worms in all my cotton. I got, I got bugs in my peanuts. I got lygus bugs. I got aphids. All the other citrus growers say, man, what are you doing for rust mites? I don't have any rust mites. What are you doing for all these? They're spraying all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I haven't had citrus leaf miner, probably because it's invasive. It's not natural here, so there's no natural enemies. I'm having a real hard time controlling it. So I'm still doing it organically.
Do you know what eats it? Or was that the analysis, the nematodes?
Yeah, there is. There's a natural wasp that they imported from maybe Korea or China, wherever the leaf miner came from. It's only been here 15 years.
Okay.
Came into Florida. This is the invasive. That's why we don't bring fruit in on an airplane.
Yeah.
You bring in this leaf miner and all of a sudden you've killed the whole industry.
But you bring in a wasp and then that's another invasive species and then you bring something, it's just a repetitive cycle.
So people are growing the wasp now, and I mean, I put out one little test, but I mean, it would have been $1,000 to treat my little 5 acres.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to put out the wasp on every tree almost. Yeah. So I'm trying to do it with this natural endophyte fungus growing in the tree, Bovaria. It's a big help. And then with some minimal insecticides. If I time them really good. I do a pheromone trap. I know when the first moth comes in.
Okay.
I can check it every other day.
That's pretty cool.
And it's the scent of the female. And I put a sticky pad. And when I get there and it's covered with about 10 or 15 males, I say, okay guys, I'm sorry, it's time to spray. And then I put out neem oil. Those big guys, vegetable growers, they're converting to this. They're seeing the most significant change, and they can do it on 100, and that guy's doing it even on 1,000 acres.
Wow.
Makes his own inoculant.
Wow.
That's really exciting, but he's still selling his produce, squash, cucumbers, one of the biggest cucumber growers in America, but they still have to go into normal channels. They're not getting a big, now his vegetables are getting more and more healthy.
Yeah.
All the time. They're really improving.
And you would assume then that they're more flavorful.
Yes.
People like them. People buy them. People talk. More people like them. More people buy them. People talk. And so it's almost like it grows itself, kind of like word of mouth marketing almost.
It's very organic growth. It's the farmers market movement and market gardeners.
Yeah.
Everything they're doing is on target.
Yeah.
And they're producing, people are maybe buying it for flavor, but they're getting nutrients.
Yeah.
Holy smoke, they're helping their health so much by going to the farmer's market, getting it from a guy that's grown it organically. He's got all these good nutrients. Now, if he was doing nutrient analysis, which might be $1,000 he'd find out, holy smoke, this cucumber is 5 times more nutritious than the one you just bought at the grocery store.
And you only needed to have 1 taco
That's
with it
right.
on there instead
That's
of
right.
3 tacos.
After one, you were full.
Yeah.
And you were actually better off because you got the right nutrients.
Yeah.
You're not going to get sick next week like you did because you didn't get any of those other good things.
Yeah.
We're learning a lot. We're learning it really fast. The science is going so fast.
So fast.
And I'm just trying to be a tiny little part of that, take advantage of these analytical tools, see if I can prove a few things,
I love it.
impact health, and maybe impact the citrus industry by documenting some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So
what is your absolute favorite part about being out here? And it can be an ideology, a physical piece. What's your favorite part?
it's so simple. It's being out here. and it's
the sun.
I love everything I get to do. Yeah, I love trimming the trees. I don't mind getting the thorns cutting up my hands and the fire ants biting me. I do kind of mind the fire ants. And just watching, I guess the bottom line is watching trees grow. And I think it's what every farmer loves. You know, why do farmers work 60, 70 hours a week, 6 or 7 days a week? At a job that's really not appreciated very well, and the economic return is getting more and more difficult, which I'm now feeling that also.
Yeah.
But I love being out here. I am having so much fun. I'm retired and I am working full time. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's
such
it's a
rewarding
blast.
work, right? Like it
it's-
doesn't feel like work, I would assume.
I can't wait till the end of March when all of these trees explode in growth. They look rough right now.
So if you were to give advice to a backyard grower and they have the greening disease, or I know you're working on the minor, but other maybe diseases, what is your kind of overview advice that you would give them without getting too technical?
I would say if they had greening, everything they could do, I would start with compost.
Any particular kind?
They're all going to help. The
Yeah.
compost is going to feed the microbes. So it's the microbes that you're interested in to get the health of that tree back.
Gotcha.
So they can find compost that may have some inoculum in it. They can buy small amounts of inoculum. I buy it, pound at a time. They can order it online. It's amazing. It's become a huge industry.
Really?
Developing inoculants. So they should do that, and then do compost around the tree. That'll feed the microbes. They can plant. It's hard in the backyard to think about cover crops. That's what's
Focus on your microbes.
yeah.
Use
Focus
compost and
focus
see
on the
what that does.
microbes. Keep it biological. Do everything that's going to help that
Awesome.
tree. This
Thank
was
you
fun.
so much for
You're-
having me out and
You're
teaching me some things. And
Well, you're good at interviewing, and
thank you.
You ask some tough questions. And
I try to ask some tough questions
I-
without getting
I
too
knew they
tough.
were coming one day that I'd have to answer those questions. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for being so open and forthright. And I
Sure.
think that we have a lot to learn from your background and your knowledge base and the testing that you're doing. And I'm so excited for the future to see
Thanks.
what you can figure out. And I am
you.
so ready for your published
Thank
materials.
you. Thanks.
Thanks, Herb.